Hi, my name's Tom Forman, this is my 24 and for this session we're going to be zig fishing. You join me here today at our very own Nash Lakes Royston. I've got 24 hours ahead of me and I'm going to be doing some zig fishing. It's a method that I favour, not just at this time of year, but all throughout the year, and it can be very effective, and that is exactly why I've chosen this venue. It's deep, with depths of up to sort of 24 to 26 foot in places. It's pretty nondescript out there, there's not a lot going on, and that makes it perfect for a bit of zig fishing. I've jumped in a swim called Main Snags. The lake was quite busy actually. I was expecting it to be a little bit quiet for a Monday, but we've managed to get in one of the main swims that sort of controls the main body of water, and that, from past experience, is where the fish sort of tend to hold out right out in that middle bowl, and from this swim I've got good access to them. The conditions aren't really ideal. I would have liked a bit more heat and a bit more sun, but like I say, with the depths, there's no way those fish are sitting on the bottom at 24 feet. They're going to be up in that middle layer somewhere. It's my job to find that depth. There's one. So, there's another one. I think the swim choice is good. I think we've got a good swim choice. The time now is exactly 2:50. I've got 24 hours to catch as many carp as possible on the zig rigs. Let's get the kit out of the van. When it's a high stock venue like the one we're at today, I would look for an area. If I don't know where they are visibly, i.e. seeing them under the surface or they're jumping, I would look for an area that's central, because I know, especially when the lake's busy like it has been this last 24 hours, the fish tend to push out into the middle, and if they're not on you, there's a very good chance they will be on you at some point, and you're never too far away from them. As long as I'm in that central bowl of water, I'm usually happy, and it usually lends itself perfectly to fishing zigs. This is my adjustable zig rig setup that I've chose to fish on all 3 rods today. I would be fishing with fixed zigs, but with the depths out there, it's just not possible. So one advantage of the adjustables is I can work the water columns a lot easier than what I would do with a fixed zig. No reeling in and cutting your hook links and chopping and changing. I can literally pay off or retrieve line and really work those water columns until I find where the fish are, hopefully get a bite, and then I can quickly adjust all 3 rods to exactly the same depth, hopefully find where the fish are sitting up and get those extra few bites. I'm going to quickly run you through what I do once I've cast my zig out into the water, because it is a little bit different from the norm, and it does take a bit of practice and getting used to. So the first thing I do after casting out is get the rod on the rest so it's ready to go, so I don't have to touch it again. Then I'll just pay off line until I watch my float until I see it hit the surface. This is where the binoculars come in. They can be a massive edge, especially when there's a ripple on the water like there is this afternoon. Once I know that float is on the surface, I will retrieve exactly this amount of line from my first butt eye. I've made my hook links this length purposely, they've been measured up exactly, so I know once I retrieve this amount of line, I know my hook is now exactly on the surface, my hook bait, and then it's down to me to deter how deep I want to fish the actual rig itself. One of them I've dropped down about 8 foot, the other is a bit more, about 10 foot. So this one I'm going to leave a bit higher and probably only drop it about 6 foot. So then I'll use the markers on the rod to retrieve 2 foot at a time. That's 2. 4. 6. So I now know that I'm exactly 6 foot under the surface. I'm going to give that a couple of hours, see what happens. If not, maybe bring it up a foot or even put it deeper by a foot or two. I learned from an early age that carp only spent a very short amount of time actually on the bottom of the lake. If you looked at a 24-hour clock cycle, like how many of those hours do they actually spend feeding on the bottom? Like 1, maybe 2. The rest of the time they're either travelling or just holding up in those middle to upper layers, sometimes for different reasons. Sometimes because of the heat, it's the warmest part of the water where they feel most comfortable. Other times they're doing it because of the natural food. It's always been in my head that it should be my number one, or one of my number one choices. Cut off. The time is now 17:48, which means I've been fishing just shy of 3 hours. And it's been an eventful few hours to say the least. I've managed to get 2 bites already. Unfortunately, I've bumped both fish off, and I'm putting that down to a combination of a barbless hook with a fixed lead, which is on like a running setup, which you have to do with these adjustables. The float as well doesn't help, and I just think it's a bad combination, and as a result I've managed to bump them 2 fish. However, I've got a fixed zig out there now. I've put it on a weed leg clip setup, fishing it in the same area, and I'm going to see if that makes a difference, and if so, I will reel both the adjustables in, put them all to fixed, and hopefully it will be problem solved. I can fully understand why people would be put off by it, particularly with adjustables. It looks difficult, it looks messy, it looks challenging, which it is. It's not something you can turn up and do. You do need to practice, like with any method, I guess, but those people that do avoid them at all costs, I would say don't give them a go. I promise you, if you're not fishing zigs, you're missing out on valuable bites that could literally change your session. Reeled the right hand rod in, moved it in a little bit closer because they started showing just to the right, only about 30 yards. Put it out, dropped it about 7 foot again, which is where I had the bites earlier. It's been out there about an hour, and it's gone. Number 1 is in the bag. $26 on the dot. Well, after losing 2 fish earlier this afternoon, within about 10 minutes of each other, I finally managed to land my first Royston carp of the session. 26 pound of Wood Lake linear. Recast this rod and moved it in. It was fishing at distance, so I moved it in just to my right, about 25 yards, where the fish had got on the wind. Dropped it about 7 foot, the adjustable, so it's fishing about 15 foot of water maybe, and it's ripped off. What a great start. We're just about to lose the light, so I'm going to get this one back quickly, get the rod back out, and see if we can catch another one through the night. Let's get that rod back out then. So that bite was 7 foot below the surface in about 24 foot of water. So I'm guessing it was about 16, not guessing, I know it was about 16 or 17 foot. So I'm gonna get another one set up, fresh hook link on, get it back out. The time is now 20 to 8. We're gonna lose the light in about 20 minutes, I think. And yeah, see what the night brings. If I was fishing a more commercial type venue that's literally full of them, And maybe if I was spodding over the top of them a sloppy spod mix, then yes, I think I would. I'd probably go for the high attract, high colour sort of hook baits. However, conversely, on big fish venues where I've also been successful with zigs, I've often done it as a single hook bait type thing, where I'm literally fishing one, more often than not, flavourless piece of foam, as opposed to getting fish competing. I'm sort of fishing for 1-2 fish in an area, and I'm just relying on them to seeing that zig in front of them as a natural food source, and nailing it. Yeah, not a lot has happened during the night, but that was half expected, to be honest. I'm not too disheartened not having had a bite this morning, because I know that at any minute now I could get that bite. So I'm not going to do anything with the rods. I'm going to sit back, make a brew, and see what happens. The time is now 7:14. A few fish have started showing. The weather's looking a lot more promising today. Just had a look. We're expecting a bit of sun, low 20s degrees, which is significantly better than yesterday. So I'm going to sit on my hands for another hour or so, and if nothing happens, then I'm going to start ringing the changes. If the sun does come out, I'll probably lift the zigs a little bit, maybe more to the surface, depending on where they're showing. I think that's really important with zig fishing. It's not like bottom bait fishing where you bait in an area and waiting for the fish to come to you. I always relate it to sort of lure fishing, where you're trying to entice that bite, you're going to the fish, and I'm definitely in the zone because they're showing again this morning. It's just up to me to get the depth bang on, and that's what I'm going to start doing. The adjustables make that quite easy to do, but yeah, I'm going to give it another hour or so. Got about 7 hours of fishing left. Yeah, I'm still fairly confident of another bite or two. To be honest with you, I would quite happily zig fish any month of the year. My dream zig fishing situation would be, although they can be effective at all times of year, or are effective at all times of year, if we're looking in sort of mid to late spring when there's a new hatch on the water, the temperatures are just starting to increase and those upper layers are really, really warm, the fish are active, coupled with some sort of hatch, that's the ultimate zig fishing. So I've seen out the morning bite time, and unfortunately the fish just haven't turned up on me as of yet. However, the sun has now finally come out. I've been waiting almost sort of 20 hours for this sun to come out. It finally has, so I thought I'd get a fresh zig on and get it back out there. However, before I do, I'm going to quickly run you through my adjustable rig setup. Now, for those who have never fished an adjustable zig rig before, I can understand that this probably looks a little bit messy, to be honest with you. However, I can assure you, if it is set up correctly, it can be a devastating method of catching carp. So the first thing I do is thread the O-ring that comes provided with the zig float onto the main line. I then pass the main line through the zig float and tie it off with a 6-turn grinner to a uni swivel. I then pull the uni swivel into the zig float. I'm then ready to make up my hook link and attach it to the zig float. I then take my spool of zig flow, thread on my zig screw of choice, and then tie it off to a size 10 or 12 floater claw, depending on the situation. I then thread my zig screw back over the shank of the hook and attach my foam colour of choice. The next thing I do is measure out the length of my hook link. It's vitally important to get this as accurate as possible, as it helps out when you're setting the zig. The next thing I'll do is hook my hook on to the butt height of my rod and measure it out right down to the reel seat and allow a little bit extra for tying my knot. For me, that's the easiest way to measure out the hook link and know that I'm at an exact distance every single time when setting the zig. The last thing I like to do before casting out is to stick a bit of PVA foam to my zig float. I then pierce the hook into the foam, and that just prevents any tangles on the cast. When the zig float hits the water, the PVA foam will come off and leave my zig tangle free and ready to set to the correct depth. It's now close to midday, meaning I've got around 3 hours fishing left. I'm starting to feel a little bit pressure, if I'm honest with you, because I thought I would have had another bite or two now. However, the weather's looking good, everything's looking bang on, so I'm going to try my hardest for the next 3 hours and see if we can't catch another fish or two. There's been a few occasions that come to mind where I should have been fishing zigs, I wasn't. I then decided to, and it's paid off, but unfortunately it was too late. A prime example being on the social 2 in Austria. I went with the intentions that I was going to be boat fishing and, you know, maybe fishing a lot of bait at sort of distance, when in fact the corner I ended up fishing, the fish were clearly held up there, but they weren't really willing to feed. So I thought, halfway through the week, I thought, I'm going to get the zigs out, got nothing to lose, and then I went on to sort of have 6 or 7 bites, I think, in the last couple of days, which completely transformed my week. And if I'd have done that from the start, who knows? And not only that, the Austrian team guys would go in, they don't fish zigs, like they won't have them in here. And I listened to them, unfortunately, whereas what I should have done is done my normal approach and gone in with them, and I could have had an even better session. I think 2020, despite lockdown, has probably been my most successful year on the zigs. I've taken them to some new venues, some big fish venues, and it's paid off. You know, I've had 1 or 2 real good ones and a couple of backups as well. My best probably being from Bluebell. I've started fishing Bluebell this year, the Kingfisher Lake. Notoriously difficult, but I did slip up on a zig every now and again. So I went in there, first session after lockdown in May, and in only my second night I managed to catch one of the biggest in the lake, a hardtail common at over 46 pounds. And I followed it up with a few others, you know, in the spring. Yeah, and it made it for a good start to the year, and I followed that on another few venues since, as well as fishing our own church lake over the winter when we were testing the zig screws and a few other new items. I managed to catch a few, I think that was January, I believe, maybe February, just before lockdown, and I managed to catch one of the big ones out of there as well, the 2-tone linnet, I think 45 pounds plus. I would have caught neither of those fish had I not been fishing zigs at that right time in the right area, at the right depth, you know. And that is it. 250 on the dot. That is my 24 hours up. Unfortunately, I didn't get that late bite that I was hoping for. It just doesn't look like the fish have turned up on me again like they did yesterday. I've no doubt if I carried on for a few more hours, they might do, and I might get that bite, but the rules are the rules. It was 24 hours only. It's not all doom and gloom. I've ended up with 1 fish. Could have had a couple more, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But still had a lovely session, and I can't wait to get back here for another go in the future.